Hello and welcome to another Sprinterra video. We're going to be starting a very mini series of financial reporting related YouTube videos. So the first of which is going to be this, where we just kind of walk through at a high level how financial reports are constructed and laid out in Acumatica. So you can see here, I've got a balance sheet up in front of us here in our demo environment, and it's broken out as kind of is the standard, kind of out of the box balance sheet in Acumatica. You're going to have current assets, you're going to have some PPE, you're going to have some depreciation totaling into your total assets down to liabilities, shareholders' equity, et cetera. So pretty standard kind of bare bones balance sheet. Now, the way these are set up in Acumatica is into rows and columns, and we'll have some more videos where we go into that, but essentially you have your rows going this way, which is where we're determining what is showing up here. So in this case, you can see we've got cash and cash equivalents, we've got accounts receivable, we've got inventories, and these are likely several accounts grouped up into like under one umbrella. So the cash and cash equivalents may be a standard operating cash account. It may include a payroll cash account. It may include a petty cash. Like it may include several different accounts, but it's rolled up into one. That's all determined. That structure is determined within the row set. And then we've got the numbers that tie to those particular accounts that are tied up here all the way down. So how do we want these totaled? You can see we've got a nice underline here before our total of current assets. We've got a nice double underline after our total assets. A couple other double underlines down here. We've got some blank spaces filled in here, and all of those little things that are pretty kind of innocuous and under the radar. Those are all controlled by the row set. So how are our rows laid out? So that's number one, is the row set. Number two is the column set. And in this case, we can see we've just got a couple of columns for this report. We've got a column one here, which is all the titles. We've got a column two, which is all of our numbers. Now, where you could really start to see some differences with the column sets is like if you wanted, for example, maybe a rolling 12-month profit and loss, for example, and then you'd have a column for current month, prior month, 2 months past, 3 months past, etc. Different ways that you want to break it out. If you wanted a financial that's going quarter by quarter, that's where you'll start to see some uniqueness with the column set. But how those columns are laid out, what data we want in those columns, that's all determined by the column set in Acumatica. So those are the two key concepts to look at: rows and columns. There is a third type, which is a unit set, which we'll get into in a separate video. Won't go into too much detail on that just now because it's a kind of a different concept. But for now, I want to go to this pencil icon and go to Edit Report and just show you a tiny bit of what's under the hood, and how this report is set up. So for this particular report, you can see it's got a particular row set here. So there are several different row sets that are set up. This one that's constructed for this particular type of balance sheet is here. So this is the row set that's active for this report. And you can see we've also got a specific column set that's set up for this report as well. The kind of the standard balance sheet column set. There's all these different options. I mentioned a 12-month rolling. Like you've got all these different potentials for the column sets that you may want to use. We do have a unit set of branches active, and it essentially just allows us to see the report branch by branch if we'd like to. But again, we'll go into that in more detail in a further video. Under the hood of this report, you can very easily set certain conditions or parameters. So for example, you'll notice when I run this report, it's automatically saying actual, it's automatically pulling in the current period. That's because we're telling it to request a start period, we're telling it to request a ledger, and we're auto-populating that in. Okay. We could remove this and just always run it for actual. So if we remove the request here, what's going to happen if I refresh this is it's no longer going to show up as a parameter here. It's just going to ask for financial period. So the values that we want to request when we run the report are all determined by what we're telling the system to request here. So if you wanted to be able to run it by a certain sub-account range, for example, or by a certain branch, we could request those pieces of information too. So when I do that, you'll see now it's going to populate. It's going to ask for ledger. It's going to ask for financial period. It's going to ask for a start sub and an end sub. So you have all kinds of flexibility as far as how you want the report to be run by default and the parameters that you want to have populated on the report by default. Now, a lot of the nitty gritty of how the report's going to show, all of that's going to be determined within the row set and within the column set, and we'll do videos on each of those here before too long, so you'll see those coming out as well. You also have control over how it's showing on the sitemap. So what title is going to show on the sitemap? Where is it going to show on the sitemap? So in our example, if I look under finance, we've got it showing under financial statements and it's called balance sheet. That's all controlled right here. So I could call it something else if I wanted to, balance sheet V2, for example. And I could also hold it somewhere else if I want. But for right now, I'll leave it under finance and financial statements. But you'll notice if I do a browser refresh here, and then I look at the finance workspace, it's going to show up down here actually as balance sheet V2. So it looks like here currently in our test system, we've got a couple different balance sheets floating around. The one that I just updated here, balance sheet V2, that's showing down here. Okay, also you have some basics on how you want it to show on the paper. So paper kind, all these different types currently showing as letter. You've got margins if you want margins on the paper. Different fonts that you can have global for the report, text alignment, styles, all those kinds of things. You're going to have those options here. Now, you're going to have the most control over the granular details via the row set, via the column set, and we'll talk about all of that later in an upcoming video. But just for now, wanted to give you kind of a quick high level of how reports are structured in Acumatica and just the basics. We'll get into all the details here very shortly. So appreciate your time and hope you have a great one.